for this office, but before I did that, I attended a seminar given by the Florida State Supervisors of Elections, so I would know two things. Number one, if I can do this job, and if I want to do the job. Because I think it's important when somebody elects you and puts you into office, you need to make sure you want to do that job because you have a term to fulfill. I have a degree in legal assisting. I have a bachelor's in technical management. I have over 15 years of legal experience, which I think is vitally important for an office that is dictated by Florida statute. So you can read it, understand it, and apply it correctly. Thank you very much.
Chris.
Hello, my name is Christopher Flint. I am a candidate for the Lake County Supervisor of Elections. I was born in Orlando. I have lived in Central Florida my entire life. I currently live in Leesburg with my wife, who is a school teacher at Groveland Elementary, and my two kids, Caden and Carolyn, who are 3 and 2. I'm a passionate advocate for the autism community. My son was diagnosed when he was 18 months, so I feel that's important for me to say. My daughter is 2, and she is absolutely the most inquisitive person I've ever met. She is ecstatic to go to DC this summer and visit the Smithsonian for vacation. From the time I was a teenager, I have been invested in these elections. I was 13 when the 2000 elections happened. I remember vividly watching them on television. It has been something that I have grown up with. My background in computer science, I have a deep understanding of how these machines that count our votes work, how they can potentially be compromised, and what we can do to safeguard ourselves in the future. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for being here. I'm Alan Hayes, and I hope that you're listening to your next Supervisor of Elections here in Lake County. Ms. Imogene Stiegel has set the bar very high. We have a history of excellent election results, and it's my plan to continue that same high level of performance. I have served for the last 12 years in the Florida legislature, 6 in the House and 6 in the Senate. 8 of those 12 years I have chaired an appropriations subcommittee dealing with 20,000 employees, 18 different state agencies, and a budget of $6 billion. I know how to handle the fiscal side of this office with no problem. I am a private businessman. I own my own dental practice for 27 years. I know how to hire people. I know how to recruit people. I know how to train people. I know how to motivate people. I know how to build teamwork. That's what we need to do here. We need to get the 21st century technology adopted in our supervisor's office, and we need to build a spirit of teamwork to make sure that we keep the reliability that we have already. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us here with you this evening. And thank you to the North Lake Tea Party and the Federated Women's Club for sponsoring this. My name is Mike Holland. I am the current mayor of the city of Eustis. My family is a 3rd generation here in Lake County. I'm very proud of the fact that my family were business owners, small business owners here in Lake County, which is where I got a lot of my start and a lot of my experience. After the family business, we closed, I moved on, and I'm a funeral director. I've been a funeral director for 25 years in family-owned and in small businesses. A lot of the things that I've learned have been through corporate and family-owned businesses. I'm very proud to have served on the Eustis City Commission now for 2 years, where I've been elected first time in a landslide and the second time with no opponent. So I'm hoping that I'm able to share with you why I'm your best candidate for Lake County's next Supervisor of Elections. Thank you.
Okay, this first question maybe you've answered it a little bit already, but we'll start with Margie, we'll come down, and then we'll stagger who starts. All right, so question number 1 is, why are you running for this office, and what makes you qualified to do so? Margie?
Well, you're right. I gave you most of that information already, but The main reason is because I have such a passion for the vote of trying to get people to understand how important it is. It's the only voice that we have, and we need to have it be heard during the elections. I'm qualified mostly by the legal experience that I have. The office job is an administrative job. You don't make laws, you don't get to decide how voting is done. That's for the legislature up in Tallahassee. But you do have an office that you have to run. And I have experience in a construction office, and I always tell people, if you want to have your day go really bad, let it rain on the day when you need to pour a slab. Because everything changes, not just on that day, but several days thereafter. And you have to think on your feet and be ready for it. And it's the same in the supervisor's office. As heaven forbid something goes really wrong the morning of the election, you better be able to handle it and think fast on your feet. The legal part is where I have over 15 years of legal experience so that I can read the statutes and make sure that everything is done according to the rules that we have to follow in that office. And I think that's imperative, and every office in Florida has to follow those same rules. Thank you very much.
Same question.
In a single word, I think it's trust. We trust our elections process to be fair and accurate. Without a trusted elections process, we cannot make the changes as citizens that we want to see in our government. This office has added, since 2000, 404 computer voting machines. Those machines, to most people, are black boxes. You put a ballot in, it reads it, it tells you, supposedly, what the ballot was marked as. With some of these machines, they can be easily compromised. I have a background in IT. I've been a software developer for 5 years, working for the military. I have a degree in computer science from UCF, which is considered by a lot of people to be one of the best computer science programs in the country. It is important that we understand this office as much of as an administrative task as it has been in the past. It's shifting towards an IT role as well. You have to know not just how to manage people, but also how to manage the machines, how to fix the machines. If a polling location goes down on election day, you can't rely on just turning all the machines off and telling no one to vote. So it's extremely important. We have rules in place. Those rules must be followed. We have to make sure that with all of these computer machines that we don't end ourselves in a corner. Thank you.
As a member of the Ethics and Elections Committee in the Senate, I'm quite familiar with chapters 97 through 106, which is the Florida election statutes. Margie's correct. Every office across the state is regulated by those statutes that I helped write and amend and that sort of thing. In this particular case, I think it's imperative that we understand that the transition from Ms. Stiegel to the next supervisor is a critical time, in that 4 other employees besides her are retiring from that office on January 3rd. So the new supervisor is going to have to make some very quick decisions. Number 1, you have to evaluate the talent that is there. Number 2, you have to decide if they should be moved up into some of the other positions that are being vacated. Then you have to recruit and train other people if you have to get someone from outside. I have already 5 supervisors from across the state that are endorsing my campaign. I have told each of them to talk with their colleagues to say, if you have trained people, experienced people in your office that might like to work in Lake County and live in Lake County, by all means put them in touch with us if I'm successful in winning this election. It's imperative that we build through the transition and that we continue to maintain this high level of performance.
The reason I'm running for Supervisor of Elections is because, being a hometown product of Lake County, I have never known another supervisor of elections other than Ms. Imogene Stiegel. She's run fair, uncontested elections for my whole lifetime. I have the business experience and the political experience to be able to continue what she has started. I have been able to build teams everywhere that I've gone, whether it be in private or in corporate business and at City Hall in Eustis, being able to put teams together that can lead people. Senator Hayes is right. We're facing a really interesting time in our supervisor's office with Ms. Imogene leaving and several of the other folks that are retiring. It's going to be a vacuum of a lot of experience walking out the door at one time. I believe I have a steady hand that can help ease the ship and can move us forward into a new beginnings for Lake County Supervisor of Elections position. Thank you.
All right, now we'll start with Chris. What can be done to improve voter turnout?
I think the supervisor's office has an ongoing mission. They should be striving to make their process and our elections in general as transparent as possible. It's important that the people who are voting understand, how their votes are counted, what is going on in that office on a regular basis, so that they have some invested interest in, okay, my vote does have a purpose in this county, that it does change our government for the better. I think the duty of this office is to actively engage the citizens in the voting process above and beyond counting our votes. They are the people who register the voters. They maintain our voter rolls. Those are important functions in how we as citizens participate in this process of our government. Increasing access to registration is something that I think would be greatly beneficial to this office, either doing registration drives as they have done in the past, or making the presence of the office more well-known and better felt, making their information and the data that they hold in their election statistics easier to work with, so that we can, as a county, come up with better ways to run our elections and not just whoever is running the office at the time. Thank you.
I feel like I'm preaching to the choir. Y'all even turned out, and it's not an election tonight. But thank you for caring enough to give up an evening of your time to become better informed voters. Voter turnout is a real challenge. But we have to understand, too, that as the supervisor of elections, we're in the opportunity business, not in the forced results business. That being said, I think that we need to explore several different avenues for increasing the voter turnout, primarily just to make more people aware of the election issues and that the election is about to occur. In today's world, particularly if you want to attract the millennials, social media is an imperative communication tool. So we need to have a Facebook page, we need to have a Twitter account, we need to have all these social media type things coming from the office of the supervisor. We can partner with civic groups, we can partner with businesses across the county to, for instance, at your local Chick-fil-A or Burger King or McDonald's, places like that, they could have encouraging messages on their placemats. The Rotary Club or the Kiwanis Club could get out and encourage people in their community. You could even use the signs that the law enforcement people use to warn drivers of things. Put them out a week before the election, say don't forget to vote. There's a lot of different things that you can do like that to encourage more people to vote.
Other than elections, what I feel the most important role of the supervisor of elections is maintenance of our voters' roll. Education, getting out to people and explaining why they need to be voting, why they need to register. We need to get into our school systems, and we need to partner with our school systems so we can teach young people the importance of the election. how the system works. We need to work with Lake Sumter State College and Lake Tech and get poll workers from those schools so that those folks understand our system and why it works the way it works. Education not only needs to be done in our school system, but we are a very transit society. Lake County has a lot of visitors from all over the country that are moving here. And every state has different rules and regulations when it comes to voting. We need to be out into different parts of our community, educating senior adults how to vote here in Lake County and how to vote here in the state of Florida. I think that would increase voter turnout, and I believe it would make people want to come out and be a part of our election process. Thank you.
Well, I have been saying for quite some time some of what you've already heard. And what it is community outreach. We have to get to the people in our community and let them understand how important it is and what a difference it can make. Because we have seen elections local that have been decided by picking a name out of a hat, by 1 or 2 votes. It's so important, and your vote does matter. Yes, we have to get to the schools. Yes, we have to get, to so many people. But I also believe we need to be at the community events that happen on the weekends. Because a lot of people like me, I work out of town, and I work 5 days a week. It's really difficult for me to come and take time out of a day to come into the supervisor's office to ask questions or anything like that. So we have to be readily available for people who only have the weekends. I know that Ms. Stiegel has a booth at the fair every year. I think that's amazing because people will come by and ask questions. But I think we need to get to the schools. We need to get to events. We need to go to meetings like this where they'll let us speak and answer questions so people know what's coming up and what is going on. Thank you.
Okay, the next question will start with Alan. Do you believe that photo voter identification laws like seen in Indiana and Georgia should be enacted in Florida?
Well, forgive me, but I'm not familiar with Indiana and Georgia. But I do know that Florida Statute 101.043, that's 101.043 if you want to go home and look it up, is very specific on the identification requirements before you can vote here in the state of Florida. You must show a picture identification, and it must have your signature on it. That signature is to be compared with your signature to verify that indeed it's your signature. If you don't have that picture ID with your signature on it, you have to present another identification with your signature on it. If you cannot do that, then you have to fill out a provisional ballot. That provisional ballot then goes to the canvassing board, which determines by looking at the signatures whether or not that ballot should be accepted. So Florida already has a very tight voter identification. Personally, I'm not opposed to using the thumb identification that some of the banks are using now for check cashing privileges and things like that. I'm all in favor of tight security, but folks, anybody who would tell you that Florida doesn't have strong voter ID laws has not read the statute. And I can assure you that when I'm the supervisor, those statutes will be followed to the letter. Thank you.
When you gave us these questions about a week or so ago, Walter, I took the time and looked up Indiana and Georgia's laws. They do require strictly that you do produce a voter's identification card or a driver's license or a government ID or a military ID. If you don't show that, you have a certain amount of time to bring that back to a poll or back to a supervisor of elections office so your vote can be counted. I've looked at our laws here in the state of Florida, and it looks like at times that you can do a provisional ballot if you don't have a voter's ID, and they judge off your signature when it goes back to the supervisor's office to count ballots. I'm all for tightening and giving ID cards and making sure they're used. I would like to see us here in Lake County look at the e-book. Instead of the old books that we have to sign, those e-books swipe your driver's license. Every bit of information comes up for the poll worker. Corrections can be made at that time. It is a very secure way. There are some challenges with it still, but that is something that's in our future that we should be looking at to make sure that we're not only doing everything we can to protect the people that are voting, but also protect those that are running for office. Thank you.
Well, I don't want to sound redundant, but yes, we do have in the state of Florida where you do show your ID to vote, and I won't explain what happens when you don't have an ID. Indiana and Georgia were both decided, it was actually done in a court case, and the courts decided that it was not keeping anyone from voting, because I believe showing ID not only preserves your vote, but also, you know, the where you are, where you live, because if somebody takes your ID and puts you someplace else, it's going to become a problem when you go to vote. I think, and last time I ran, we talked about this, because I think you should have to show your ID. It's very important. I want my vote to be my vote. And somebody asked me, and I thought, well, this is a good idea, something we'd check into, is what about getting voter ID cards with your picture on it? And I said, well, I like that idea. Of course, it's all depending on costs and everything else. But, you know, something you can certainly look at, because then they wouldn't need anything more than their voter ID card. And I know, especially as a woman, to get your, like, even the address on your license changed nowadays is an absolute nightmare, because they want documentation from, you know, you were born, you were married, if you got divorced, they want that. Every name change that you go through, they want. So they're making it very difficult for some people. I do think voter ID is necessary, and in Lake County it will happen if I'm the supervisor of elections. Thank you.
So, I think what the laws are in Indiana and Georgia have been pretty well spoken about. Our current laws have been pretty well covered. I personally don't see a need to change the laws. I don't know why you would need to then be so harsh on requiring the photo ID when we have alternate systems of verifying who you are. One way that would be good to assist, voter IDs are predominantly and mainly help to vote to dissuade and catch voter impersonation. When someone goes up and says that they are that they're this person when they're not, or they act like they've changed their name, or whatever, so that they can vote either more than once or in the place of someone else, that's a problem. It happens quite frequently when people come from other states and they change their registration, it's not caught. There's a proposal for a system out there called ERIC, the Electronic Registration Information Center, that has been put out by the supervisors of elections. They have insisted that this would be a good idea. It has been blocked several times. Apparently there are some privacy issues, although ERIC has said that that there's nothing compromising about it. I looked at their technical brief. I am absolutely not concerned about any privacy issues. They do encryption above and beyond what banks do. So, anyways.
All right, the next question, we're going to start with Mike Holland. Is voter fraud a problem in Lake County? And if so, what would you do to reduce it?
Walter, I think we would all be foolish if we didn't think that there is some type of voter fraud involved in our system somewhere. I think because of the way our system is set up, that there are loopholes there that people can get around. I think as I've studied a little bit about voter fraud, I think a lot of voter fraud comes in, truthfully, not so much at the polling place, but in absentee balloting and when people are mailing things back in. If you could get a relative's absentee ballot, you could fill it out and send it back in, because there's no stopgaps, there's nothing there to really check on. One of the things, when I would mention the e-books, that e-book system really goes back through and checks. It can be set up with a database that can actually check to see if someone has voted at another location, if they had voted out of state, if they voted absentee, if they voted earlier in the day, it would show up on the e-books. So those are some of the things that we could look at to kind of curb voter fraud if there is any taking place here in Lake County.
Well, I think for us to say there isn't any would be wrong. And there's different levels of it. It's like, he was saying that if a relative gets it and fills it out, the signature on the back can be grandma's. The grandma trusted you to do it right. If you did something other than what grandma wanted, that's fraud. It's a different level of it. It's not somebody actually going into a poll, but it's still the same. I've heard a lot of people that have concerns now about assisted living facilities that have said they went to go help mom or dad fill out their ballot, and they got there and mom said, oh, the nurse or somebody helped me do it. They're very upset by it because they don't know what mom or dad signed. So you have to be cognitive of these kind of problems, but I always say the biggest way to fix any kind of possible is to keep up on the voter rolls. When somebody passes, when somebody moves, we have to come up with some systems to get them off the voter rolls if they're not going to be here and allowed to vote. And I think that would take care of a lot of the problems because that's generally what people look for, is they look for someone that has moved, that's still a registered voter, and they go in and they get the ID, and ID is easy to get, and they vote for that person. So those are the things we have to watch. Thank you.
So, as I've said, I'm a software developer. My experience comes from software. We measure our issues two ways. We measure them by the severity of the issue and then by the breadth of the issue. The severity of voter fraud is as high as you can get. When someone votes in the place of another person or when they're not supposed to, that is a definite problem. That said, in the past 2 elections, FDLE brought 13 cases. That's less than 1 per county. While voter fraud is a problem, and any voter fraud is unacceptable, we need to make sure that we don't go overboard in our response to it. Because then you start to affect legitimate voters. Someone who has been voting their whole life who no longer is able to. That's a problem too, and we need to be cognizant of that. So while yes, I think voter fraud is an issue, it is not the only issue. It is not to be singled out above and beyond anything else. We need to make absolutely sure what ramifications the changes we make will have. That said, there are other types of fraud that occur in the election systems, some by happenstance or mistake, some intentional. Voting machine tampering is a form of fraud. It is generally not done by one individual voter for their own benefit. It is done for the benefit of a candidate. Things like removing a ton of polling locations because you just don't think there's going to be enough voters this year is also a problem as well. Thank you.
Short answer to your question, no, I do not think voter fraud is a problem in Lake County. To give you a little more elaboration, though, I personally will do everything within the law and everything that I can possibly do to make sure of the accuracy and the integrity of our voter rolls. The electronic poll book that Mike has mentioned is an excellent adjunct, an addition to our process here, and he explained very well the advantages that the electronic poll book brings. Statute chapter 98.065 is very specific in what we as a supervisor can do to clean up the voter rolls. It's very prescriptive in how you go about making sure that you delete properly those people who should be deleted. The ERIC process, the system that Christopher mentioned is very good for checking on people that might be registered to vote in other states. and you can clean them up that way. But again, the short answer, no, fraud is not that big a problem right now in Lake County, but you can bet we will be on the guard in every conceivable way to make sure the law is followed.
Okay, we'll start again with Margie. Do you think the current Supervisor of Elections website needs any improvements, and if so, what would they be?
Okay. Well, in 2012, that was one of my big issues, was the website, because I said, for me as the average Joe, when I have to keep hitting the back button because, it wasn't where it thought it should be, then that's a problem. I do think it needs some improvements. I know that she has, and I'm going to take credit for it, she has fixed the candidate list so that it's not just one little line that goes across with nobody, so you actually can see the candidate list fairly well. I think we need to have maybe the websites, email addresses, things like that, where you can click on and go to the candidates if they want to give it to you. And it's not endorsing a candidate, it's for all the candidates if they want at their name on the candidate list to click on it so you can go to the website and see what they're about. I think we're going to have to do social media. It's, our youth nowadays, and I laugh when I go into a restaurant and I see two kids texting when you realize they're texting each other from across the table. But it happens. So this is what they're paying attention to. So we have to have Facebook, Twitter, some YouTubes they can click on to get information of how to vote, where to vote. I think it's absolutely necessary, and the easier you make it for people, and that will be on the website, the more response you'll get and the more people will pay attention. Thank you.
So as anyone who's used Facebook or any other website recently, they change it all the time. As a software developer, nothing is ever finished the best it can be. We can always do better, and every software developer will tell you, if you give me just one more week, you'll get so much more than you're getting right now. Just one more week. And so it's apparent that the site is somewhat dated. At some points, you do cross over into another system. I believe it's called VRS. That's what manages the candidate section, the financial records, things like that. Areas of improvement there would probably require software updates through the vendor that actually makes it. But with respect to the actual usability and the pathing through the website, it's likely that there can be changes and improvements made there, but until you have concrete information and how people actually use the site, most people, I would imagine, don't enter through the front of the page all the time. Things tend to get bookmarked. Our browsers are a lot more capable than some of the websites are. So it's, in a short answer, yes, there are things that can be done, but as to exactly what can be changed and what should be changed, that's up to the next supervisor and the citizens that actually use the site and what they would want.
Yes, the website definitely needs to be updated. I ran a very successful dental practice in Umatilla for 27 years. And the way I did that was not because of my genius, but because of my willingness to go around, attend meetings, listen to other successful dentists, find out what worked well for them, and adapt it to my practice. And several of you, thankfully, were my patients, and you know what kind of practice that we ran over there. It was state-of-the-art at all times. Every patient who came through the door had the opportunity to have state-of-the-art dentistry. I'm going to run the Supervisor Elections Office the same way. If you want to see 3 websites that are very good websites, go home tonight, pull up the Marion County Supervisor Elections Office, Seminole County, or the Manatee County. There's one company that does the websites for, I believe it's 60 out of the 67 counties in the state of Florida right now. It's a very excellent website company. I don't have to invent mediocrity when I can borrow genius from someone else. And so I would want to sit down with them. Right now, our county employees are the ones that maintain our website. And I'm confident that the company that does the ones for the other 59 counties can do very, very well, and we need to look into contracting with them. But yes, the website needs a lot of improvement.
Simple answer is yes, we need some changes done on that web page. Every successful business today operates off of great web pages. The best web page in our county government today was placed by Carrie Baker in the property tax office. If you haven't been to that, you need to go take a look at it. Anything you need to find out is on that page. I believe that the Supervisor of Elections office needs to be the same way. You need to be able to click on there. You need to be able to pull up the budget for the Supervisor of Elections office. These petition cards that we have to sign. We should be able to go on the line and find out exactly where we stand with petition cards. It's very easily done. Whether it's done in-house through the county, which I believe did a lot of Carrie's work, or, as the Senator said, we go outside. Seminole County has a super Supervisor of Elections office, and their webpage is phenomenal. Go home and take a look at it like the Senator said, because it is outstanding. Thank you.
Okay, Chris, we'll hit you with the first audience question of the night. How about that?
All righty.
Now, I have no idea what this is. Maybe you guys do. How important do you think it is to utilize part of the HAVA grant money?
Does anyone know?
Help America Vote Act. Help America Vote Act.
So they essentially grant money and...
I don't know details. I just know that's what it is.
I think we pay our taxes for our government to work. If it comes in that we're going to get a grant to make our elections process better, that's our tax money. By saying we're not going to take it, we are essentially saying, okay, take my money, give me absolutely nothing for it. So if there is a grant out there that we have or we can get, then we should be using that money to make our elections process better. I know that's not quite...
We never know what we're going to get with an audience question. Continue on.
Okay, the Help America Vote Act definitely has money in it where the federal government sends money to the states. The Department of State Division of Elections in Tallahassee has that money. They parcel it out in the grant process to the small and medium-sized counties for technological enhancement. There's also money in that act to assist voter guides. Matter of fact, the Seminole County office uses the federal money to print their voter guides. It's an excellent voter education piece. Tells a lot of information in that voter guide. So yes, the Help America Vote Act grants. You can bet that I will be on the phone saying, "Okay, Mr. Detzner, help me out, buddy."
The Help America Vote Act is something that I would take advantage of. The document that Senator Hayes just spoke about, the pamphlet that they give out in Seminole County, is outstanding. Again, Mike over in Seminole County has done a phenomenal job. And if they're taking that grant money, we should never leave money on the table. It's our money to begin with. If there's no strings attached to it, we need to be reaching back and grabbing it back and bringing it home to Lake County. So yes, we should use that to upgrade our technology and get information out to our voters. Thank you.
HAVA is the Help America Vote Act that was passed in 2002, and it was created after Florida had the 2000 election debacle. And it is strictly for helping train poll workers, upgrade machinery, get information out to the voters. They have $2 million for the state of Florida in a non-election year, $3 million in an election year. And this past year, they do not. I think you can't get the information quickly enough as to what they're asking for now, because I've looked in the past. But last year, Lake County got $50,000. So it's not a huge amount of money, but certainly anytime you can get money for your county from a grant from the federal government because they want you to do better with your elections in your county, I think you should ask for it and be very precise in what you want to do with it, although they are very restricted as to where you can use the money. And I think that's a good thing because it is strictly for making sure that the voters stay informed and that you have proper equipment. Thank you very much.
Okay, Senator Hayes. Let's do another audience question. And just like at our U.S. House forum we did, I got a question about fair tax, and I had a pretty good idea that Sue Hooper had written that question. This one here, I think I have a pretty good idea who might have written this question too. Vance. Starting with you, Senator Hayes. Will you commit to a full performance audit by the County Inspector General every 3 years? There has never been one.
It's fine with me if they want to come and look and see what we've done and how we've done it, but I would suggest that rather than doing the County Inspector General, that we ask the State Office of Policy and OPAGA anyhow. Yeah, either them or we could get the administrative committee in the legislature to come down and do an operational audit and see how we're doing it. But I really think that far greater importance than having a bunch of auditors come in and look over your shoulder and everything is let the voters decide how good a job are you doing. Are the elections run smoothly? Are the results accurate? Are the people who come into your office treated with respect and dignity and cooperation? Do you respond promptly to their requests? The same level of constituent services that I've established as your legislator for the last 12 years will be carried with me to the office of the supervisor. So, as far as them coming to look, it's fine with me, let them look. But we'll see what's the best avenue to do that. Who's the best person to choose to do it?
Thanks, yes. I would open up our office for any type of inspection by auditors that we needed. I think that upon taking office, I would ask for an audit to be done of that office immediately, just to know where we are, where we stand. And every 3 years would be fine with me. But again, like Senator Hayes says, I come from a profession where my integrity and caring for people shows, I hope, constantly. I hope that because of my training as a funeral director, the people that come into that supervisor's office are treated with respect and kindness and dignity, no matter who you are, no matter what party you're from.
But Mike, the dead can't vote in Florida.
I know that. But the people that can, I want to be taken very care of, okay? So, thank you, folks.
Yes, absolutely, and I would ask for the audit prior to going in there just to see that everything is good and where we're coming in. I have to disagree with getting somebody from Tallahassee unless it's required, because I think locally they'll do a better job than when you go. Generally, when you want something done in your county, you go to the county first before you go to the state because it's very slow. They're very busy. They've got 67 counties, and I hardly doubt if all the counties asked for an audit at the same time, you would see yours anytime soon. I'm sure we've got very responsible people that can do that audit. And then if there's a problem, then perhaps you have to call in the state. I think the voters need to know that everything is run proficiently in the office, that their vote is not compromised, and that everything that's supposed to take place in that office is. As a voter, that's what I want. I want to know that everybody's abiding by the rules and doing what they're supposed to do, and I can't imagine that I would want it to be any other way. I'm not a big person. I don't know who the auditor is, but to me, this office is nonpartisan, even though the race is partisan and non-political, and that's exactly how it should be run, and I think an audit would be the best way of taking care of that. Thank you very much.
So it's like you guys have said, the senator, the mayor, Mrs. Eaton, it's our money. Why shouldn't we know where it comes from? If the citizens of the county want an audit, I don't see why we shouldn't have an audit. But above and beyond that, the office should be as open and as transparent as possible. Anything that is not protected by law or mandated to be kept behind the walls should be made available to anyone who wants it. If you want to see something, and I don't think it's a security risk, and there is no voter privacy that would be compromised, I would gladly show it to you. We shouldn't be trying to hide things that don't have a direct impact on the security of our elections or the privacy of our citizens. So with respect to running the office, yes, if an audit is what is desired by the citizens of the county, absolutely. But above and beyond that, we should just make sure that we are being as forthcoming as possible, about not just the good, but any mistakes. If you request something, and I don't think we should make that information public through security reasons, I would give you a detailed explanation, to satisfy you that I can't give you this because of, if I divulge this information to just anyone, we are opening ourselves up to some sort of either malicious attack through our voting system or something through our ballot process. Thank you.
How about another audience question, Mike? This one is interesting since it's a supervisor of elections forum. It's a simple question. They want to know, how long have you been a registered voter?
I've been a registered voter since I was 18 years old. I registered right out of Eustis High School. First ballot was Ronald Reagan. First one, Mark.
I registered when I was 18 years old, but I did find out through the supervisor's office that when I got married and changed my name, that instead of doing a name change, I did a new application. So it will probably show, I think, 86 that I, now everybody knows I was 18 and 86. Just for the record, I'm 52. Yes, I have been since I was old enough to vote, and I can say that I think I only missed one vote, and I was in the hospital at that time. Thank you.
So, I don't know what's worse. I'm 29, which makes me markedly young for this. I can't remember if I registered to vote if I early registered or registered when I was 18, but I have been registered since I have been eligible to vote. My first presidential election was 2008 because I barely missed the cutoff. I was born a handful of days too late to vote in the 2004 election. Otherwise, I would have been there in the lines with everyone else. But I think it's important. We, as citizens, this is the only peaceful way that we can change our government to benefit, to match the way we think it should be run. If we don't show up and vote, there's a chance that some other elected official could just appoint the person for you, and you have to wait 4 years, or you have to wait till a special election comes across. And I take my rights as a citizen and my duty to vote extremely seriously. Thank you.
49 years. It is what it is, folks. I registered the very first opportunity, and I've made every effort I can to vote in every. I cannot sit here and say I guarantee you I voted every time, but I can guarantee you that very, very few times that I didn't vote, and I can't recall any of those at all. But I too take the privilege of voting as a very, very serious, and frankly, I think it's an obligation that we as Americans owe it to ourselves and to our fellow citizens to get out there and vote and express our preferences in the ballot. Thank you.
So how did you register when you were only 5 years old?
It was in Florida, so it couldn't be crooked.
Well, keeping with the audience questions, I'll give Margie one, since everybody will have an audience question to start out with. This says, canvassing homes for candidates reveals multiple families registered to vote in single-family residences. It appears that many are simply due to high mobility. Yet the potential for abuse is present. As such, what will you do to make sure only eligible voters are voting?
Okay. I have canvassed homes in 2012 and did find anywhere from 20 to 18% of homes where you go and people go, oh, those people, we bought our house from them 8 years ago, and I had one this year. The guy told me his mother passed away 15 years ago. And he's contacted the office. She's still, because I went up and asked for her, which is just horrible as somebody going to a house asking for somebody's deceased mother. I think the thing you have to do is work with different places. Yes, we get the death records of people who die in Lake County. We compare those and take those off the rolls. I think also you have to work with the property appraiser because they always know who owns the house. And if they want your tax money. I think you can work with title companies, realtors. These are people that know when people are moving in and out. And not just to get them off the rolls, but to also remind them that they need to change their voter registration card if they're moving to a new address. Because the reality is we only think about it about every 2 years at best, and some don't think about it until a presidential race. Now, there is a statutes that say how we have to do it, so someone can't walk in and go, Grandma doesn't live there anymore, take her off the rolls, and you wipe her off the rolls immediately. There are procedures you have to follow, and they must be followed. But I think if you get other people to help and get information into you, that will make a huge difference. Thank you.
So the state of Florida actually sits on a massive amount of data about all the citizens, what we do when we buy houses, things like that. The largest problem is that these are little, what are called data islands. They sit behind the walls of the people who use them, and they are not interconnected. Not to rag on Senator Hayes, but the legislature could do more to make this data available to the supervisor's office. It's easier for the state to know when something's changed than when your family members are grieving. The last thing you think of is got to take them off the rolls. I had a friend who died about a year ago or so, and after their grieving process, I had started running for office, and I was like, you have to remove him from the rolls, and it was hard to do. It's one of those things that people don't want to face. It's one more thing that they have to do. We have a lot of this data already. The mobility of people, especially in Lake County, is very high. We can do more to share the data between the agencies, incentivize title companies or realtors, as Margie said, to get this information so that we can have accurate voter rolls. You don't want to knock on someone's door and ask for a deceased person. Thank you.
I think the whole problem is we must do everything conceivable to maintain the public trust. And we dare not take someone off the rolls mistakenly. And with our voter ID requirements, the likelihood of someone being able to vote who's dead is very, very remote here in Florida. When the absentee ballots come in, the signature on that outer envelope is checked against the signature on the file, and the ballot itself is put over in another area so that you can't look at the signature and say, oh, yeah, they voted this way or that way. the ballot is kept separate, but the signature is verified before the ballot is accepted. So it's in the process, but the whole idea here is that we've got to maintain the integrity of the voter rolls, and we have to maintain the trust of the public to know that we're doing everything that we can do by the law. Yes, the legislature does have some work yet to do. And as Margie stated, this office is not a political office. This office is an administrative office where you need people with executive decision administration skills and a track record. The political stuff is what interferes in Tallahassee or in D.C., is when the politics get into it. And I would hope that we can keep that out of it completely.
As I said toward the beginning of our program tonight, that voter roll maintenance was a very important part of what the Supervisor of Elections does. Christopher's right. There's all kind of databases out there that the state of Florida sits on. This should be opened up, and we should be able to share information backwards and forwards. The state of Florida has come a long way with its information sharing over the last few years, but we've got a long ways to go. If everyone could share their data back and forth, we could clean our rolls up very easily. Now, I know there are certain federal laws and state laws that we've got to follow, but we sure need to be pulling somebody off our records that has been dead for 15 years, because it is an embarrassment to walk up and ask for someone that's been gone for that long. So we've got a lot of work to do, and I believe that through the supervisors having good contact with their local legislatures, also being a part of the associations that are available to supervisors, we could all work together to make a positive change in the way we're cleaning up our voter rolls. Thank you.
All right, so we're on Chris now. If you were to win the election, what would you do in the first 30 days in office?
So, I'm sure I'm not the only person who's experienced this. You work a job, you've done your job for a while, you know how your job should be done. And then either your boss is replaced or moved or whatever, and the new guy comes in and he starts putting his stamp on everything. You do it this way, you change this, you do things differently. That's a problem, especially in this instance where our supervisor has been there for 44 years. She is retiring. She has been doing this job for a very long time. The staff that's with her, notwithstanding the people who are retiring with her, have a large amount of experience to teach even the most experienced supervisor coming into this office. The first thing I would do is listen to them. They have a lot to teach me. They have a lot to teach any one of us, I'm sure, how elections have been run in the past in Lake County, and going through their positions and how they've run that office with them after a point at which I felt that there is enough, that I have gathered enough information. I would sit down with the office and give them my explanation on where I think we can make gains, where we can be more efficient, where we can automate some of the mundane work that's being done, and go from there and get their feedback on that. I'm being elected, if I am elected, to run an office. I'm not being elected to stamp my will on this county.
The first thing I'm going to do if I win the election is call Imogene and say, hey, can I be your shadow now until you leave office? Because that lady has a wealth of institutional knowledge. She has put together a very good team, and it's unfortunate that so many of them are retiring. But I'm going to glean every bit of information that I can from them to help me administer that office in a similar way. I'm also going to spend some time on the road quizzing the other successful supervisors across the state. I think that it's just imperative that we interview all of the people that are going to be remaining on the staff. Find out if they were in charge, what kind of changes would they make? Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to make those changes, but at least we're hearing from them and showing them the respect that they deserve for having been a part of that team for so long and been so successful with it. That's how you build confidence. That's how you build teamwork. And it would be my intent to learn and listen and learn and listen all I can. And then, like I said earlier, we will approach the changes in a very systematic manner. We're going to take care of the most important things first, and then we're going to work toward the accomplishment of those other things that we've identified that need to be changed. The overall thing is to make sure that we maintain the confidence of the public in the integrity of the process. That's what has to be done, and no compromising on it.
There is a wealth of knowledge in the staff that's there at the supervisor's office. There are ladies and men there that have been in those offices for a long time that I could learn a lot from. I'm kind of like Senator Hayes. I would want to sit down with Imogene and truthfully shadow her from the time the election is over until she left. Because when you've been in the office as long as she has, 44 years as supervisor, but then 14 years prior to that as a deputy in that position, she has seen Lake County change, and she's helped change Lake County for 58 years. So I would like to sit down with her and get her ideas of how to push us forward. Another idea that Senator Hayes hit right on the head was spending time with other supervisors. I've been fortunate enough to be able to share a lot of time with some of our other supervisors around the state already, getting ideas of how we can change some things to make Lake County better and to push us forward with the computer systems and to make those fairer and easier for people to use. Thank you.
Well, I have to disagree with Mr. Hayes on the regrettably they're retiring. I think most people, when they get ready to retire and spend more time with their families, they're very happy about it. I do think the office does have an enormous amount of information, success, and those are the people that I want to talk with, the ones that are not retiring, that I want to talk with to see if they would be willing to take on greater responsibility, because one of the positions that's coming open is the second in command. And that holds a lot of responsibility, because if something happens to the supervisor of elections, they're it. And I hope that some of the people in there are willing to take on more responsibility and apply and be, I would love nothing more than to move the people up in there in an office that when you have people stay that long, there's been no movement. I think also I want to sit down and meet with them individually and ask them, what do you think the weaknesses are of the office, if there are any? What's the strengths of the offices? How do you feel about the position where you're in? Is there something you would rather do? You have to listen to them, because these are the people that are going to be working with you as a team. And Lake County deserves to have that office running as a team so that we can effectively help all of you when it comes time to asking any questions about what's going on with the elections and also on election day. Thank you very much.
Got an audience question here. I think this might be an interesting one. Starting with you, Alan. What do you think about PACs and super PACs, and how do you think they influence elections?
PACs and super PACs. I think there's a lot of bad, and I think there's a lot of good. From the standpoint of the local elections, they don't play that big a role generally. This year, I'm an exception to that case. Most of the money in my campaign account came from PACs while I was in Tallahassee. But I followed the letter of the law. The law requires me, when I changed from one, for those of you who may not know, I had originally filed to run for re-election to the Senate. But when the court case came down this past year, instead of having a 4-year term, I would have been dealt a 2-year term. And I saw this opportunity to continue in public service for a longer period of time, which I dearly enjoy. And I don't want to quit my public service. So I said, I'm going to run for the 4-year term here to succeed Imogene instead of run for 2 years. All right, I had already accumulated over $250,000, and I sent a letter to every one of those donors offering to give them back a pro rata share of their money, and out of the over 300 letters that we sent out, fewer than 20 indicated that they wanted their money back. And those were PACs. There was one or two individuals, but most of them were PACs that had said, our bylaws don't allow us to contribute to local races, so please send us our share of the money back, which I did. But generally, local races don't have that much PAC and super money.
I believe that PACs and super PACs really have no reason to be in local politics. I think that on the county level, on city levels, that we should be able to go to the people. If you trust us to be in office, you will give to our campaigns. And that's where we need to leave that. Because every time you reach out to a super PAC and bring money in from another area, you're asking for other people to stir in your business. And here in Lake County, here in our cities, we don't need that. We need to be controlled by the people that elect us to office here locally. Thank you.
Well, this won't take me 2 minutes. I think, and you've heard a lot of it this year, when you get money from super PACs and PACs, and it's a lot of money, that they tend to think that you're beholden to somebody, whether it's something you can do, some influence you have on somebody else to get them to do something, and especially in a county race. I mean, I don't even agree with it with the federal races, but in a county race, do you really want some outside money deciding for you who's going to do a job in your county? I do not. I don't like them, and I promise you, you will never see one in my account. Thank you.
So, as has been expounded upon up here, money that is in local races should come from the people who are the voters in those races. It's troubling the amount of money that's out there, especially special interests, things like that. I think there's too much money in elections as it is. It's why we qualified through the petition method instead of paying the almost $7,000 it would have cost to file outright. We feel that it's best to meet voters, that instead of blanketing an area that you may never step foot in campaign materials, we feel that it is much better to go out and talk to the people who live there, convince them, one-on-one, in person, through, direct correspondence, that I feel that I'm the person for you and I would appreciate your vote. And that's how we're going to run our campaign. I think PACs and super PACs should especially stay out of local elections. And beyond that, I'm running for supervisor and I'm keeping my political opinions to myself because I feel this office should be nonpartisan. Thank you.
All right, looks like we've got time for maybe a couple more questions. Mike, will you be using trained people from True the Vote to monitor all voting precincts during the general election?
I believe that we should use monitors wherever we can for elections. I think to have oversight of the process that we have needs to be there. And I would encourage any group to come to the office, let's talk, let's actually sit down and come up with a way for groups to come in and monitor our elections. The elections belong to the people, and that is our truest form of democracy. What gives us and guarantees our democracy is the vote. So we need to make sure that vote is pure. I'm one set of eyes, and the staff only has so many eyes. So the more people that are watching our election process, the better we are. Thank you.
My answer is yes. I have seen and experienced and did everything you can to find out about True the Vote, and I think they sincerely want good elections where there's not voter fraud. I also would have to say that when you do say yes to any organization, that if another one comes to you and proves that that's what they're trying to do and they want to have some oversight, that you have to let them in also. And I would reiterate that I think having oversight at the election, in the office, can never be a bad thing. It's, and if somebody comes in with a theory of what they're going to do, I think you'll find out real quick that they're not really trying to do what they're claiming to do, and then you can address that. But I have absolutely no problem with any organization who wants to come in and have oversight over our elections. Thank you.
As said before, our elections are built on trust. We elect a person that we trust, that we think can do the job. We trust that our elections are handled fairly. That trust is something that comes with an openness. If someone wants to be a poll monitor the votes, we have public events that we also have for verifying the machines as well. I have been told that those aren't heavily attended. I would encourage everyone to go to those. This is our government. It only works when we are all invested. So as many people who would want to faithfully monitor the polls, I am all for it.
The simplest answer I can give you there is I will follow the letter of the statutes. Every candidate has an opportunity to appoint poll watchers to stand at the different polling places and monitor the activities for that particular site. And I would certainly be open to that. I would be open to anything else, any other group that wants to come in and observe our election process as long as the statutes allow it and as long as they follow the letter of the law. That's the important thing. It has to be done that way. We're not going to allow a bunch of renegades to come in and crowd up our polling places and obstruct the opportunity for our Lake County citizens to come in and vote in an orderly manner.
All right, we're going to do one last question, and then we'll do our closing statements. And if you're asleep, wake up, because this is generally an audience favorite, this question, and it's very telling. I always enjoy this question. And I guess we're starting with Margie's, where we're at. Okay, if you could ask any of the other candidates a question, who would it be, and what would you ask them? Yes, yes. You get 30 seconds to answer the question.
I don't get 2 minutes to ask it, right?
No.
A concern of mine would be to Mr. Holland is, do you have a problem with Mr. Hayes voting for the Supervisor of Elections pay raise, albeit he did change his vote against it? And if you do, then why is there not a problem when you voted for the city commission of someone that was, I don't know, related to you or had donated to your campaign?
Okay, Mike. Got 30 seconds to rebut.
First off, I'm trying to just figure out what you're talking about, the last part of your statement, Margie. All right, Carla Jeananne Thompson was appointed to the Eustis City Commission. She is married to my cousin, so yes, I did. I did vote for her, but I was not one of the ones that put her forward, actually. When we were filling a seat on the City Commission. Talk to us. Okay, sorry about that. When we are filling a seat on the City Commission, what we do is each commissioner gets to put someone forward. I had put, at that time, someone else forward.
Keep going, 30 seconds more.
Okay, and I put somebody else forward. Do I have a problem with the vote? I would not have voted for that. I would serve the people of Lake County for the amount of money that was coming to the supervisor's position. That's my simple answer there. But yes, I did vote for Carla Jeananne Thompson at the end of that, but I did not put her forward. She was not my first choice. She's on the commission and she's doing a great job for the citizens of Eustis.
The fact that she alluded to my vote. Do I get an opportunity to defend my vote or explain my vote on the?
Sure. Go right ahead.
Fine. Okay. Folks, it's really quite simple. It's all about salary equity. That bill was passed, and I voted for it in committee, and I voted for it in the chamber on the final vote. It passed the Senate unanimously. I would do it again today. I specifically picked up the phone and called the Senate General Counsel, and I said, listen, George, I'm fixing to run for the supervisors. Is this any remote possibility of a conflict? And he said no.
30 more.
He said, go ahead and vote for it or vote against it however you want to. The history of that issue is that when the formula was put together, most of the supervisors were women. And the men that put that formula together paid the women less than they paid the men. And this issue was brought about to be gender equity, if you want to call it that. It was brought about to be salary equity so that as a constitutional officer, the supervisors all across this state are paid the same as the other constitutional officers. I was not elected. It's no conflict for me. And again, I say I would do it again tomorrow.
Chris, do you remember the question?
I believe so. I feel that your past kind of informs your future. So I shared with you that I was 13 during the 2000 elections. I remember that vividly. My question is to anyone who would care to answer, what is your most influential personal elections memory? Like, we can't talk about, stuff from the 1800s.
Not even I go back that far.
So it has to be something that personally happened to you, like the first time you voted or something like that.
Okay. Does somebody want to address that?
Christopher, during the first election for George W. Bush, I was living in Orlando at that time. And then even through the second re-election, and I was able to go to the inauguration. But any time he visited the Orlando area through those 8 years, I was able to work with the Republican Party in Orange County and helped with the press and different things on his visits. And those are very memorable things for me. And that I've been very active ever since, because when you get involved and you get that feeling, you just want to be around it, you want to help, okay?
Alan? Want me to read the question to you again?
Sure.
Not that you didn't.
What question would I ask somebody?
Yeah, if you could ask another candidate question, who would it be and what would you ask them?
Ms. Eaton, would you prefer that we not raise the salary for the supervisors and leave it the old formula?
All right. My question was not about the salary raise. I think I know, and I'm going to answer it. Is the inequity of the pay is something that absolutely should be changed. My question stemmed on the integrity of voting for something that you had because you're running for the office, that you had an interest in. It's the same way when I work for a judge. There are certain people either that if donated to her campaign, anything like that, if they come before her, she has to recuse herself. Your vote would have made no difference in the outcome of it. So my is, why didn't you recuse yourself? The same for Mr. Holland. It's just, and it always comes down to it's not illegal, but sometimes even if it's not illegal, it's just wrong. And that's where I stand on that. So no, it's not about the pay raise. I don't have a problem with them being equitable with the other people. It has to do with the people that made the vote when I see it as they should not have.
The reason that I did not recuse myself is because that is not an option. By the Senate rules, every person there has to vote. It's either up or down. If it's a conflict of interest, then I have to declare that conflict of interest. But this is, I recognize that, and I went specifically to the General Counsel, Mr. George Levesque, And I said, George, is this a conflict or not? And he said no. Therefore, I voted for it.
Okay. And Mike, you were mentioning there too. Do you want to 30 seconds to?
I would just like to say, when we had that vote on the city council, I did ask our attorney about recusal. He said unless I had a monetary gain from the situation, I was not to recuse myself, that I had to participate in the vote. When you are giving a list of people that have applied to be on your city commission, and I hate being in that position, and unfortunately, next week the Eustis City Commission is in that same position where we're having to look into the community to bring somebody else onto that city commission. I don't think it's a position we should be in, nor any of us want to be. However, when you're given a list, you try to go through the recommendations of those people, you try to look at everything about them, and you try to make it fit. You try to see who's going to be the best fit for your city and your commission. That's what I did with my vote. It's turned out to be a good thing for the city of Eustis, and I would make the same vote again tomorrow. I have no apologies to make for it.
And while you're up,
Yeah.
no, if you could ask another candidate a question, who would it be and what would you ask them?
Sure. Mine is to Christopher. Christopher, we know we've got challenges in our technical part of the Supervisor of Elections office. What would you do within your first 60 days in office to make changes within the technical part of the Supervisor's office?
So my biggest concern at the present is the ADA voting machines, the ones for Americans with Disabilities Act, are touchscreen machines. A touchscreen machine, when you cast your ballot on it, it records that electronically and then holds it. It produces a receipt, but that receipt is not your ballot. That's not your vote. It just mentions that this is the person you voted for. That is a compromisable system. It has no verifiable paper trail where we can go back and recount your vote. If we want to recount the machine prints out what it gave you the first time. So my biggest concern would be looking into ways to mitigate that risk or outright replace the machines. There are ADA ballot readers that will read the ballot to you and mark it for you. And at the end of your machine, or at the end of your voting, it produces a paper ballot marked as if you had done it by hand. And someone who is at
30 seconds.
thank you. Someone who is in need of using those machines can have someone verify the ballot for them that it was marked correctly, and then that ballot is just treated like everyone else's and goes through the scanner. And I think that's the biggest technical hurdle, especially from a security standpoint. Thank you.
Told you that could be informative. We'll start with our closing statements now. We'll just do it in reverse order. Margie started opening, so Mike, you can start closing. So we'll go that way.
Again, thank you all for sitting through this tonight. Folks, I'm third generation to be able to call Lake County my home, and I'm very proud of that fact. Lake County is in my heart, and I carry it with me everywhere I go. I'm very proud to be on the board of directors for the Florida League of Cities, and I get to travel all across this state and brag about Lake County being my home. Couple things that you need to know. As a funeral director, I've been able to work with families at the worst times of their lives, and I've been able to guide them and direct them. I've put together teams that have been able to manage large funeral homes. The same abilities that I've been able to carry in my funeral career, I bring to the table for the Lake County Supervisor of Elections position. I'm able to work with people, I'm able to give care to people, and I'm able to run a large business with my experience. At the end of the day, democracy works when the people vote. I want to be the greatest cheerleader that I can be for the Office of Supervisor of Elections here in Lake County. I believe that I have the experience and the ability to do that. I ask for your vote to be your next supervisor, and if I can answer any more questions for you following tonight, I am available to you. I've got some information over to the side, and again, I thank you for sitting here and listening to us tonight. Thank you.
And I too thank you for coming tonight. As I said earlier, there are a lot of other things that you could be doing, but you care enough to come out tonight, and I deeply appreciate that. I pledge to you, ladies and gentlemen, that I will continue to deliver the same high quality of election results that we have become accustomed to here in Lake County. And we owe Ms. Imogene Stegall and her team a deep debt of gratitude. I will make sure that this office is one of which you can be very proud. We will have a team of dedicated and certified election professionals. The office will be professional and up to date in every way. I bring to this office a determination to continue providing the same trademark constituent services that I have done so as your legislator. And as the chairman of the Senate Appropriations Subcommittee for the last 6 years, I had a great team working for me, staff director and a group of analysts. And I wanted to show my appreciation to them for their support, to take them to dinner one night after the session. Jeannie and I went up there, and they surprised me with a gift package and a card in which each of them had written a couple of comments. And I want to share 2 of those comments from the staff director, Ms. Jamie Deloach. She said, "Mr. Chairman, I am truly blessed to have had you as my fearless leader. Your ability to so quickly decipher all of the weedy budget details and make a decision is phenomenal. I have never had a chairman who was so caring, honest, and stands by his principles. I always knew you had my back. There is no one that will be able to take your place. Best wishes on your next adventure, Jamie." And then one of the analysts says, "Chair Hayes, it has been an honor and privilege to be part of your staff. Thanks for all the leadership and support you have shown throughout the years and creating that family atmosphere for us. Above all, thanks for making it fun to come to work. You will be greatly missed, Sandra." Ladies and gentlemen, that's the kind of office atmosphere that we will have in Tavares when I'm your supervisor of elections. Thank you.
In the 44 years that Mrs. Stegall has been running the office, she has not been sued once. There have been no court cases to overturn an elections process. That is a legacy to be very, very proud of. She has laid a great foundation for this county, for the next supervisor, and for the citizens and their voting. We do not need to make drastic changes. There are probably places where things can be made more efficient. We can make some increased transparency. As a software developer, I don't think anything is ever truly finished. We can always do better, but we have a great place to start from. We should not run from that. We should build and learn upon what she has done. Software development is a lot like running an elections office. You have deadlines that cannot be missed. You have people who are waiting for what you are doing for their job. You are a large part of a support staff. It is no different with an elections process. You plan, you analyze, and when the day comes, you cannot miss that date. You have to be ready. Elections come down to trust. We have to trust the people that we elect and trust that our votes are counted fairly. Trust that everything is done with transparency, and make sure that in the future we do not dig ourselves into a technological debt or a technological hole that we cannot bring ourselves out of until we found out that an election has been stolen by someone else. Thank you.
I'd like to just take a couple minutes to thank the North Lake Tea Party and the Lake Federated Republican Women's Club for putting this forum on for you all so you can find out more information about the candidates. And the food was really good. I think Ms. Stegall has done an excellent job of things over the years, and I like to believe that she would want to find somebody to take that office that has the passion and the willingness to do that job, and that's me. I have run for one other office, or not one other, I have won one other election, and that was for Supervisor of Elections. I have no desire to go from this job to that job. This is what I want to do. This is where my passion lies. This is where I think I can make a big difference in Lake County. I'll tell you a little story. I'm a judicial assistant, and people that know that job knows that our job goes with our judge, and the judges are elected every 6 years. And in 2014, the judge that I worked for in Orange County was up for election, and he lost the election. And at that moment, that night, as I was watching the TV results, I was sitting there going, what will I do? 2 days later, I got a phone call from the lady who had defeated him, and this is what she said to me, and this is how I will work for you. She said, Margie, I know this is a little awkward, and you can take time to think about it, but I've talked to everybody that you have worked with at the Orange County Courthouse, Public Defender's Office, State Attorney, other judges, and they have all said excellent things about your work ethic. I would like you to come work with me. And that is who I am working for now. And to me, that says a lot about the job that I'm going to do in Lake County. I will not fail you. I want you all to please, on August 30th, consider electing a qualified candidate, not a politician. Thank you very much.
I hope everyone enjoyed that. I hope you were well informed. I'd like to ask the candidates just to stay up there for a minute so we can get a group photo before you take off. And I guess you will all be around for a little while to talk to people. Okay. And one quick announcement. They wanted me to let you know that Representative Jennifer Sullivan is having a town hall tomorrow night at Lakeside in Mount Dora from 6 to 8 p.m. if you want to go meet with her. Good night, everybody. Thank you for coming.